Okay, so I was just saying that it's good to think about motivation before we start. And I like the example of baking a cake. I mean, obviously you get excited because you're going to make a really delicious cake and such, and it's just for you with your, latte or something. But if you then think, oh, I'm going to invite, 4 or 5 of my friends over, I mean, you're still making cake. You're still going to enjoy the cake. You're still going to have your latte, but you have more happiness because you're doing it for more than yourself. So in the same way, it's sort of, sometimes difficult to think like, yes, I'm doing this for everybody, and I feel happy. It's more difficult than baking a cake, isn't it? But the point is that, we should try to have some joy in our Dharma practice, which I will talk about in a sec. But, joy. And well, what it means is, hey, I'm going to become a nicer person. Now, where that could work is with your personal family or people that you personally live with or people that are important to you, then you can certainly create joy and says, I'm going to become more peaceful. I'm going to become a happier person. I'm going to be more reliable. And so then you listen to the Dharma discourse or you do your meditation. And then there's this greater feeling inside of you. And that's the whole point. Um, that now, where the real joy can be is if you work through one of your delusions. Let's say you have an anger problem, or maybe you have a desire problem, or something like that, and so you work at it. As you say, as I said earlier, you bring it into enlightenment, so that it's no longer like you say, okay, this delusion has misunderstanding of reality. I'm going to help it become more enlightened, and so then you help you help your angry mind become more enlightened. You help your mind full of desire to become more enlightened. Because you did it in that way, when somebody else has anger, somebody else has inappropriate desires, you automatically can feel that, yes, I'm going to be help. I understand how to help them. I have a natural empathy with them. So it can be quite, it can be, anyway, it's good. So again, feeling, excited about your Dharma practice. I guess I can say that with, in honesty, that I can think that really the big excitement for me was to be with these incredible Tibetan Lamas. I mean, the Dalai Lama, Ling Rinpoche, Trichin Rinpoche, Surkhan Rinpoche, all of these great Lamas who really had some very significant realizations that sometimes you could experience something when you're around them. And so, yeah, there was definitely an excitement that, yes, spirituality and Dharma practice really it works. It's really true. So then you get excited. So, I mean, maybe you can't directly access that, unless you go to India or something, or a Lama comes through town. But the thing is, you at least know about it, which is still can be very exciting. So that way you do feel thrilled that you're going to practice the Dharma. Okay, so for again, we're going to do refuge and offer mandala. I'm going to do it in Tibetan because I've memorized it. You just do it in your own way. Sangye chodan sogi chodan la chanju bardu dan nigab soje dagi cho sangye we sonangi rola benju sangye dru bar sho. Sangye chodan sogi chodan la chanju bardu dan nigab soje dagi cho sangye we sonangi rola benju sangye dru bar sho. Sangye chodan sogi chodan la chanju bardu dan nigab soje dagi cho sangye we sonangi rola benju sangye dru bar sho. Sashi Bogi Joji Medo Damri Railing Genie Diagambadi Sange Shingdaming Depo Wargi Drogananda Shinla Jo Warsho Yidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamir Kayami. Okay, so welcome to this will be actually the final class that, as far as I can see, I've run out of interesting things to say. Anyway, okay, so I wanted to start off again with graduated path because, being a tantric deity is nothing unless you have the graduated path. Meaning is that, you're working to become a more enlightened individual. So the thing is that it's really important to have your graduated path. But it's important to have graduated path with life, that it really is basically your excitement. Okay, now I'm going to give you a story, and it's from one of a dear friend of mine who also sort of is a Buddhist practitioner. And he, at the age of 18, got, rheumatoid arthritis, or juvenile onset arthritis. So that means by the time he was, 21, he was sort of, slightly crippled. By the time he was 22, he was crippled. Like, one arm was withered and tucked to his chest. His legs didn't work very well, all sorts of problems. So, obviously pretty darn angry. I mean, he was a guitar player and, he's actually quite handsome. So suddenly his life was, say nothing. I mean, it was sort of like, who's going to love a cripple, you know? But he started to attend the Dharma classes that I was giving in Durango. And as he attended, then I went through Perfect Human Rebirth, which for me is just sort of like, it's unbelievably basic, I mean, what's so special about Perfect Human Rebirth? Nothing like that. And, I mean, other than, yes, it's important and, be inspired about your life. But he heard it, and and what I did was I did this. I take a piece of paper, and I write on it, "You're a winner." And I give everybody a little piece of paper, and it's folded so they can't see it. And then I said, now visualize that that's a $1 million lottery ticket, So, and you open it up and you just won $1 million. So how excited would you be? I mean, you wouldn't even sleep that night. And when you woke up in the morning, you'd jump up on your bed and jump up and down because you can buy a better bed even, and let alone you can give money to your family members and you can do all this incredible stuff. And it's like, yes, I'm so excited because I have $1 million. It's very mundane, but the thing is, it's $1 million. So anyway, I gave him that. So he went home and he glued it to the ceiling above his bed. So when he woke up in the morning, he would look up and it says, "You're a winner." And then from there, he just said, hey, I've got options, which the whole Perfect Rebirth meditation is. I've got possibilities. I've got options, I mean, I've got access to teachers. I've got the teachings. I can go online. I mean, I've got a rebirth and I can study and I can practice meditation and stuff. So it's, I have potentiality. I can do something with myself. And so he had that feeling. And then, so he started to improve his attitude. He wasn't angry anymore. He says, anger doesn't help me. So, hey, I'm going to do something with myself. So he's excited, with himself. And every morning he'd look at the ceiling above his bed and he'd say, well, I'm a winner. Okay. Then, with time, then he was a little bit more energetic about his life, a little bit happy. And then the relic tour came through his city. And so he went there and he volunteered for it. I mean, even though he's crippled, he has to walk around with canes and everything like that. He was at the gate and meeting people, and he was really happy about this. And so, and lo and behold, a girl showed up, and he got talking with her, and it was a really nice conversation. And then more came of it, and da 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 da, and then they fell in love, and da da da, and then they got married, and da 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 da, and then they got children, 3 children actually, and stuff. And it's all because he changed his attitude. I mean, what would he have been like if if she'd met him on the street or met him somewhere and he's just angry and pissed off, I'm a cripple, and this and that. You see what I mean? Like, so he got turned on about his precious human rebirth. And although, it was for just, basically being a more happy person, but it changed dynamics. So you should try to have that you have this enthusiasm about your life, that yes, I have opportunity. Because so often, what happens is we take external things, like I have this family member who's a big pain, or I have this situation, I haven't got money, or, whatever might be your particular thing. And then you say, oh, I can't do anything. No. And what you've done is you put your emphasis to the outside phenomena. You haven't put your emphasis to your potential of becoming a more enlightened individual. And you don't need to be rich to become a more enlightened individual. In fact, actually being rich is, possibly more problem for you because you have more to manage. So anyway, the long and the short of it is that it's to feel excited about your life and put emphasis on the internal quality, not external phenomena. So so as I explained in the two or three classes ago, that being really excited about the themes of the graduated path, and I don't mean like it's something, make it your own. Make it that you are excited about the potential of what you can do with yourself. And, we're all lay people. I don't think there's any monks or nuns that are in this particular group. So let's say, for example, in your relationship, whether it's intimate or whether it's just being with somebody, you could say, well, I'm going to offer, towards becoming more enlightened with this person. And so then you have this interesting life, and it's beyond this rebirth, you know, because it's not like just, oh, you know, I'm going to become a more enlightened person. No, I mean, if I can get my act together in this rebirth, my next rebirth is going to have its act together because I did it in this rebirth. I'm going to have a continuity of that. And if I can give really good energy and support to the people in my life, I'm going to attract those sorts of people in my next rebirth. You know, so wow, I mean, so you see what I mean? It's like it's getting excited about your Dharma practice. Now, another component in graduated path, the next little step for it is the death and impermanence, you know, and again, like what is important? You know, your possessions are going to come and go. I mean, how many cars and houses have you owned and such? Or, you know, I mean, how many pieces of clothing? Or how many friendships have you had and have stopped, whether just you moved away or whatever? And in your own body, it's getting older, you know, it's going to die on you at one point. It's going to be actually the cause of your death. So the thing is you want to be more conscientious about, you know, what is really important. Now, in regards to that, just some, you know, personal thing is, it's not easy to generate that really good sense of, you know, what is important and why trivial things are not important. But if somebody starts to die who's a friend of yours, it's really good to participate. And I'm not meaning in a sadistic way or an inappropriate manner. Just be with them and experience their suffering of having to die and what they have to go through and getting their life organized or whatever. I mean, you know, they say that the nicest way to die is with cancer because you have a bit of time to organize yourself compared to a car accident where just suddenly, you know, it's over. So why? Because you're going to have a slap in the face about what's really important. Because you're going to watch this person die and you're going to go, like, that's going to be me one day. You know, and you're going to see whether they deal with it well or they deal with it badly. And so it's going to clarify things. And the biggest thing with when you understand that you are impermanent, triviality doesn't exist anymore. You are not caught by triviality because it's not important, you know. So what if somebody's angry? You know, I mean, I'll try to be a nice person, try to help them, but I'm not going to get caught up in anger. I'm not going to get caught up in the garbage. So you want to, again, make it alive for yourself. Make the thing. And we're not evangelists. I mean, Buddhists are not evangelists. Or you could say the only way that you evangelize is the way you live your life. And it's not that you beat a drum and say, I'm a Buddhist, you know, I meditate. No. You know, if somebody comes along and says, hey, you know, wow, you're a nice person. Why? You know, it says, well, you know, I meditate, you know, a little bit, you know, I like the Dalai Lama, you know, he's a really great guy, you know, his message of compassion, something like that. So it's a subtle evangelizing, okay? Anyway, so I'm just touching on a few things. Then again, refuge. Now, refuge is really inspiration that you get inspired by. For example, I mean, the Buddha. Okay, now it's not so easy for us to sort of know the Buddha, but we can know the Dalai Lama. And again, I just pick him because I think he's a wonderful man. And, you know, I mean, we all have our little quirks and stuff like that. Who doesn't? But the thing is, you know, his message and his, you know, theme is very, very good. So taking refuge is inspiration, you know, and so you're inspired by the Buddha. You're inspired because he's enlightened. So then turn around and say, okay, well, you know, I don't know the Buddha very well, but maybe I know, you know, the Dalai Lama, maybe I know some other great teacher who really embodies something special. And then you feel inspired. And what that means is, I think this is admiration. I can't remember the way it's said, but it's something like, you know, when you admire somebody, you emulate them to some extent, you know. And so that's really what refuge is. Now that then becomes your tantric practice also because it's called identification. I'm sure you're all familiar with the standard word, which is, you know, divine pride, but you really want to look at it as being identification. Now, I did talk about it before, but I want to emphasize it that it's really important that, you know, when you talk about pride, for example, let's say you own a really nice house, maybe you have some really nice clothes, and you think your mind goes to your clothes and says, wow, you know, that's really good, you know, or I have a really expensive car, yes, I feel proud. Or I have a Rolex watch or whatever, you know. But it's a very dualistic thing. Whereas when you identify with it and then you emulate those qualities. So, I mean, for example, here in Mexico, when someone thinks they're a Mexican, I mean, I don't know, they think about fiestas and, you know, I don't know, I mean, just all those things that are, you know, I mean, I'm sure each one of you, when I said Mexican, came in your mind, something about a Mexican, or maybe Corona beer or whatever. But the point is, came something. So when you think about yourself, you're an American, a Canadian, a Mexican, a person from Europe or whatever, then there will become a natural sort of identification with that, hopefully a good one. So like that, you identify with being a deity. And of course, if you get a deity that you happen to really like, it works really well. Like Yamataka or Guya Samaja or Heruka Charzambara or Vajrayogini, whatever deity. And so you don't identify with your mundane sense of self. You identify with your divine sense of self, which comes out of Dharmakaya. Now, I went through a lot of its description about that before. I'm not going to go through it again. I'm just touching on things. But we're talking about refuge. I'm inspired by the Buddha. The Buddha had a really good message, and I've got friends who are practicing that style. So there's refuge, but you're looking at it more in terms of I am inspired. Now, shift it over to a living person. Some teacher that you really like that turns you on, gets you excited about stuff, okay? That's, again, if it's a Buddhist teacher, then of course there's your refuge, okay? And by admiring and being inspired, you emulate, okay? Now then, turn it into a deity that my teacher is, like for me, Lama Yeshe was Heruka. Heruka Chakrasamvara. The guy was full of bliss, and he was full of happiness, and he was full of life. Remember, I was 20 years old, and I met this guy that was a Tibetan monk who was celibate, and I said, I want to become like him, because the guy was so happy. He just exuded this incredible sense of life, and it wasn't like happy ha-ha, it was life alive. And why? Because he lived it. That was the thing, is he really had the experiences of Heruka Chakrasamvara. So it was very, very powerful. And so as a 20-year-old, I got my whole life ahead of me. I became celibate. Most of you just go like, whoa. Anyway, but Lama Yeshe was very inspiring. Okay, but we are talking about identification. And so when you identify with the deity, of course, the deity has to fit you a little bit. If you're really lucky, you might have some dreams that indicate the deity is a good catch for you, or maybe just the way the image is, it sort of attracts you, like that. So there's different things. But whether you practice any of the major tantras, they all really have the same dynamic. You don't need to think that there's got to learn a whole new thing. So right now, for example, if you're practicing Yamataka, which is really good for determination, ability, and such, if you shift over to, for example, the Heruka Tantras, and of course the easiest one is Vajrayogini, there's bliss. Okay, so then you start practicing with that. Well, you don't change anything other than you might say the flavor of being that deity. And by being the flavor of that deity, then you have a different sensation and you identify with it and then you come across that way. Okay, so this is all really basic stuff. It's just it's just things I'm covering what I covered in the previous classes, but I really wanted to try and make it more alive for you. So identification, I think it's a much better word than divine pride. Okay, and why is it identification? Because you're coming out of your Dharmakaya, out of your most subtle mind, the most profound level of consciousness. You are manifesting on an astral realm, which is your Sambhogakaya, and then you're manifesting into a physical body, which is your Nirmanakaya. Why? For the benefit of sentient beings. Like I talked about for the motivation, you're making a chocolate cake for more than just yourself. Okay, and that makes you happy. And it's going to be a great chocolate cake because you put some really good stuff in there. So like that, you've got precious human rebirth. You know what's important. You're inspired by something beautiful, the Buddha. You're taking care of your karma. You're dealing with your delusions in an appropriate manner. You're not suppressing them or taking Prozac, And then you're into the Bodhisattva path, and you're a Bodhisattva. And it's not like your big grand ego. It's, hey, my life is more meaningful. Why? Because I'm interdependent. And I appreciate all the things that support me in my interdependence. May I benefit them a little bit. So then may I practice the 6 perfections. May I be generous. May I have ethics. May I have patience. May I have enthusiasm. May I have meditation and peace. May I have wisdom, understanding the nature of reality. And then, of course, I then arrive at my practice of Tantra. Okay. Now, so it's a very, I came to a conclusion at one point that your practice is sort of like it's an integration of just a sense of self, a sense of being. And in that sense of being, you have this nice quality of being inspired. You have this nice quality of being, having potential and all these things. So it's a state like that's what you want to arrive at anyway. Okay, so that gets us to the current moment where we've covered the previous things. Now, I mentioned sexuality in the last one, and I want to be really clear about it in terms of that it's about waking up your body. There's actually an interesting, research done in Sweden, and it was they were looking at, men and women that were still in their 70s and 80s and 90s having sex, and they said, okay, what's their state of health? Now it was, you might say what a quaint sort of thing, but they found that generally speaking, those people that were still having physical sex at the age of 70, 80, 90, they were much more healthy than the average person that was sort of maybe single and not in a relationship. And so then he went, wow, so why? Well, it's hormones. Your hormones, keeping your hormones stimulated and activated and sort of, when you say juicing your body, okay, like giving you energy. Now, you might think, well, what's that to do with being a monk? Monks are celibate. Okay, but if you're a monk and you're visualizing yourself as Haruka, well, you've stimulated your hormones, and if you visualize yourself as Vajrayogini, you're in ecstasy. You're stimulating your hormones. And if you're visualizing yourself as Yamantaka, you're stimulating yourself. So the practice of Tantra is actually unbelievably profound. It's not, just some silly fantasy thing. You are actually affecting yourself. And again, like if you're single Yamantaka or whatever, and you're there with, you have a big erection and you're sort of like this and that. No, it's what you mean is your body is stimulated. It's your hormones. It's not that you're looking out to be a sexual predator or something like that. So I really wanted to emphasize that you're energizing yourself with Anuttara Yoga, and all Anuttara Yoga, that's highest class of Tantra deities, all have consort. That what that means is your body is energized. Hormones are being secreted because of your identification. Now, if you did it for the benefit of others, I'm becoming more enlightened, then you don't have a coarse, ugly form of stimulation to yourself. You've got a beautiful quality and you're very alive. And that's Lama Yeshe. That's what the thing that when I saw Lama Yeshe, I didn't think of him as sort of like a sexually active man, but I just thought, this guy's full of life. My God, I want to be like that. I don't know, I guess I felt pretty pathetic about myself, but he was so full of life. And yet he had morality and he had ethics and he had, he was generous and he was kind and he was loving. Okay? So, in regards to sexuality, it's not about looking for your soulmate or looking at women or men and trying to stimulate yourself or something like that. No. Nothing like that. In your meditations, you can generate incredibly good feelings of being alive and energized and such like that. And it'll make you very attractive, because then you have to be careful. When someone's full of life, people say, "Ooh, I want that person." So again, you have to be careful. Chomdo Geshe, one of my lamas, once said to me, he said, "You don't walk around manifesting Yamantaka all the time. People will be terrified of you. You can do it in your own home because you're generating confidence and capacity to deal with delusions with no problems whatsoever. You have 16 legs and 34 arms and 9 heads. You are dangerous to delusions, okay? But you don't do that walking around the street. You'll freak people out. So when you walk around the street, you're Avalokiteshvara or Tara or something like that. You're a nice person. Or maybe you're just very deep and quiet in yourself. Whatever. Point is to say, so again, the deity practice is about becoming very alive and such. And then just, of course, be careful about how you're manifesting yourself. You don't want to manifest yourself inappropriately. Lama Yeshe had very clear boundaries. He was a monk. You don't hit on a monk, okay? If we're lay people, you have to be a little bit more careful about how you're manifesting yourself. So that's the point. I just wanted to touch on that to be really, really clear. Don't create some sort of sexual fantasy. Just you energize yourself with the visualization, which I'm going to talk about something a little later, which I think is very interesting, and I hope you find it sort of intriguing. Okay, Now we arrive at, okay, so you've got your graduated path, you've got it pretty down pat. You sort of figured things out. You're inspired, you know what's important, you know you've got potential, you're dealing with your delusions when they arise, mindfulness, Shantidevas, guided the step away. You've got a wonderful practice, okay? And then in that, you are a deity. You are Yamataka, or you are Vajrayogini, or you are whatever Heruka, whatever deity you have, Vajrasattva, Okay. So then, when that's pretty stable, then you move to the 6 yogas of Naropa. Now, I mentioned this in the previous class just a little bit because what your graduated path is, and even your graduated path is actually the tantric deity. The tantric deity isn't something outside of the graduated path, but it's a personification of the graduated path. 16 legs. When you stand on 16 legs, you don't fall over very easily. That's your voidness. You are standing stably on your full appreciation of voidness. That's the 16 legs of Yamataka. You have 34 arms. Well, it means you're fully capable with spears and swords and shields and all sorts of things to deal with your delusions. And then you have 9 faces, okay, which is, it's, I don't know, whatever. Just the point is it's all an expression of the graduated path of enlightenment. So that's the Christmas tree, okay? You make a beautiful tree, you put lots of baubles on it and things like that, but you haven't plugged it in yet. All of that is your graduated path and your practice of Tantra. When you plug it in, that's your practice of the central channel, which is, of course, like the 6 yogas of Naropa. And that makes it that all the electricity flows through it. But, like I explained earlier, it's like you have a big Fender speaker, a big Bolsina, a big speaker. And if you have a speaker, but you haven't got, you haven't got a very, very developed personality, then you're just going to put noise out of your speaker. You're not going to be very friendly and attractive. You're going to just be noise. Whereas if you take the Dalai Lama, when he talks, it's a symphony orchestra. It's beautiful. It's Vivaldi. It's Beethoven. It's Brahms. It's just gorgeous. Love, compassion, wisdom, appreciation, equanimity, all of those things. That's the thing. So the Dalai Lama, you could say, is a very developed Christmas tree. And when he practices 6 yogas of Naropa, when he plugs himself into that, the power goes into being a very beautiful man. Okay, so that's what you want to be very careful of. So literally, the 6 yogas of Naropa, or for example, the first one, Tumo, it's all about power. That's just it, it's power. But it's power in personality, which just means that if you don't have a very nice personality, you're just empowering yourself to be a major pendejo. That's a Spanish word for being a jerk, okay? Anyway, so first off, don't fool yourself, but it's good to practice, the 6 yogas of Naropa. They have meaning, just try to be a good person. So don't be afraid of it and such. Now, if you're really, and I'll be really realistic because we're all lay people, and I don't think many of us have sort of run off and, doing long retreats all the time, other than maybe Doug in Canada. He does that a lot, maybe Michael too. Okay, so anyway, but the thing is, realistically, the only one you really want to focus on, other than to understand that the others exist, is Tumo. Because it's the one that's going to be like the door opener. If you start getting Tumo, which means you're starting to open up your central channel, you're starting to get access to the great power that's within your nervous system, then all the other things become real. For example, what's called the impure illusory body, the pure illusory body, the impure clear light, the pure clear light, the 8 visions at the time of death, all of that. It all happens because you finally have started opening up the central channel, and how you did that was because you did the Tumo meditations of the 6 yogas of Naropa. It's number 1. The only thing I could add to that is the other thing that's in the 6 yogas is called Lucid Dreaming, and you can get books on that. Stephen LaVerge and Alan Wallace both have produced lots of material on that. Alan's a very dear friend of mine. I don't know Stephen LaVerge, but the thing is, lucid dreaming isn't that difficult. Many, many people have it. They're not even Buddhist, so there's nothing uniquely spiritual, unbelievable about being a lucid dreamer. So if you become a lucid dreamer to any degree, then you can practice Dharma. For example, if you became a lucid dreamer, you pretty much create the environment you want if you're reasonably good at it. So you want to have sex with somebody, you have sex with somebody. You want to fly in the sky and do loop-de-loops. You can do that too. You know, that's lucid dreaming, no problem. But the thing is, we're Dharma practitioners. We're not mundane people. So what you can do is you can work on your delusions in your lucid dream. Now, Tsongkhapa talks about that. If you get hold of Tsongkhapa's presentation of the 6 yogas of Naropa, he says, you know, waking up to your dreaming, that's the first step, and gaining better control, and then trying to manipulate or change the dynamics of your lucid dream. So for example, let's say you're in a lucid dream and suddenly there's a snake appears in front of you. You can turn it into a pussycat, you know, and that's the power of consciousness. And one of the features that's unique about a lucid dream is that if you can get lucid dreaming and you're familiar with the sensation of a lucid dream, you can invoke that when you're awake. And what it means is you have much more capacity in your daily life. Because in your lucid dream, you can fly, you can change a snake to a pussycat, you can walk through a wall. I mean, you can't do that in reality, but the point is that you know you can create incredible impact and effect on the world around you in the lucid dreaming. Well, that comes into your daily life, and you'll find yourself much more capable. You won't be afraid of things. You know, if you're afraid of something or somebody or a situation, you know, you take a breath, you bring up the feeling of what it's like when you're in a lucid dream, and there is a specific feeling. If you've ever had one, you'll know a little bit what I'm talking about. So then you can invoke that, and then you can have more control. So lucid dreaming, you don't need to have any of the 6 yogas of Naropa. You just have to get hold of a book on Stephen LaBerge's book on lucid dreaming. Alan Wallace just produced one recently, I think, on lucid dreaming. Read those. You don't need to be even a Buddhist, okay? But so that's something you could do and bring it into your Dharma practice. You know, maybe initially you might go and say, "Wow, you know, I always wanted to do loop-de-loops in the sky," you know. But after a little while, then you say, "No, okay, let's practice the Dharma." Okay, so that's lucid dreaming. But the real one we want is Tumo, psychic heat, and again, just do your meditations. You know, there's the Lama Yeshe's book, which is called The Bliss of Inner Fire. Get hold of that, read that, and you know, maybe take some more teachings. I talked about it a little bit the last week. So you have some stuff to look at and to play around with. Okay, so that's Tumo. Now, what I wanted to just touch on was something about, and I mentioned it in the previous class, and it's a little bit my own experience, is that in your dreams, the quality of the characters that arise are, and this is regular dreaming, or even lucid dreaming, it could be, but it's much more, let's just talk about regular dreams. The quality of the characters represent to some extent where you're at, you know, like what sort of level of consciousness you're at. And both myself and actually Rob Priest, he lives in England, he's a close friend of mine. He's the same age as me. We both did retreats. He did a Haruka retreat for many months up in the mountains, close to where I lived, and I did my retreat. You know, both of us. And both of us had similar experiences in the sense that when you start to really get more in touch with yourself, you know, like that is, you're not so external and not so caught up in prestige and social standing and things like that, but you're more in touch with yourself, then things start showing up, which you could say it's the Daka Dakinis, you could say it's Vajrayogini, whatever. It really doesn't matter what the name is, and whether it's, you know, Haruka, Vajrasattva, whatever. But the thing is, it's going to be at the level that you're at. So Rob, for example, when he started to do his retreat, he dreamt of the he dreamt of the local girl from his high school, you know, in England, that was basically very loose sexually, like make love to anybody, you know. And he went, "Oh, that's interesting," you know. So that was the girl that showed up in his dreams a couple times, you know. And then he kept practicing and practicing. And in another dream, like about a month and a half, 2 months later, she showed up, but she was wrapped in a white towel with a white towel around her head, and she was having a Turkish bath. And she told him, "Oh, I'm getting cleaned up." And Rob went, "Wow, that's interesting," you know. And so he, you know, he said, "Whoa, this is a sign," you know. I mean, if you look at Tilopa talking to Naropa, he says, "Look in the mirror of your mind, see the smiling face of the Dakini, realize impermanence, realize Krishna rebirth." I mean, there was 12 special events that happened if you read the story of Naropa and Tilopa. Okay, now So look in the mirror of your mind, see the smiling face of the Daka or the Dakini. So when you start being a very serious practitioner, very sincere, I mean serious like, you're locked up in your house all the time, but you're very sincere, then your mind will start responding to that because it's an inner event, it's an inner experience. And so for Rob, the first one was sent, just a local girl that's rather sexually loose. Well, I don't know, he didn't think of himself that way, but it was sort of like his first thing. Then later on, he practiced, she started to clean her act up. Then he said it was interesting because later after that, then a girl that he'd fallen in love with again, it was when he was a teenager, she started showing up. And he was really touched by that. He said, wow, I mean, my original love, and stuff. But he realized it was his attitude, that his attitude was getting more organized, more succinct about things, and it started showing up at her. Then, funnily enough, then with that, then he said one day he had a dream and he's in the palace with the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama is giving this big teaching. And he said, then that girl showed up, but she was in a bathrobe and her hair was in curlers. And it was so embarrassing for him. And he went, oh, that's not very good. And he thought about it and he said, well, I'm still rather mundane about my practice. And it's showing up that, in the temple of my own enlightenment, because the dream was his dream, it was his Dalai Lama. I mean, I've told you before, like Lama Yeshe always said when I dreamed of Lamas, he says, that's your Lama Yeshe, that's your Geshe Rapton, that's not me. Okay? So really was giving you much more ownership of yourself and your personal experience. So anyway, Rob then had to meditate and practice more. He couldn't be attached to that previous girlfriend. And then, things changed, but I haven't seen him for a while, so I don't know more details. But my point is that your attitude will create things around you. So if nothing much is happening, well, maybe you're not very internalized. And some people physically maybe have trouble remembering their dreams. So let's not be too judgmental if you don't remember your dreams. But the more you practice, the more you will get in touch with your dream life. It just goes with that because it's mindfulness and awareness. Okay. Then certain characters will show up. And as certain characters show up, you can start to recognize, well, are these people very developed or nice people, or are they pretty, criminals or something, For example, like when you do a Yamantaka retreat, it's so common to have a dream of a battle. I remember when I did my first Yamantaka retreats, I dreamt of the war between the Nazis and the Americans, and that was my thing. But what it is, it's a battle of me against my delusions. It's symbolic of that. That's very, very common for all the people who practice Yamantaka to have a dream like that, when you get sincere and really try to practice strongly. Anyway, so this is a little bit my commentary, a Jampa commentary on your practice. But the thing is, what's really nice is suddenly you go, woo, my practice is alive. I'm getting signs. Wow, that's unbelievable, So anyway, practice hard. You might have certain characters show up, maybe a boyfriend, a girlfriend from your history, what quality they are. Keep practicing, see if they improve a little bit, see how things grow and change, and then you have an idea that my attitude is the creator of my inner experiences. This morning, actually, in the Vajrayogini class, every morning there's a group of us in Mexico that do Vajrayogini. I mentioned that we all have the most subtle mind. We all have clear light consciousness. And only in Anuttara Yoga do you then taught how to use that, which is transforming death, bardo, rebirth. Okay? So that means is that your most subtle mind, which is your Dharmakaya, which is your clear light, is equal to all the Buddhas. It's not like the Buddhas have another mind or another state of being. Their most subtle mind is their clear light, and their clear light and your clear light are exactly the same. That's why your ultimate nature is possibly enlightened. The only problem is that they have cleaned themselves up, practiced and things, and they have full-time access to their clear light consciousness. We don't. We're so external. We're always running around chasing desires and chasing this and that. And because of that, then we never access. And again, then you need to be a pretty good meditator too. But the point is still, when you start putting emphasis on my inner quality, May I be a better person. May I be more in touch with myself. May I be more at peace with myself. You're getting closer to your clear light. And then you could say literally that the Buddhas, which have access to your clear light, can try to start communicating with you. It's another way of looking at what dreams are. Now, you always got to remember that don't overemphasize a dream. You're going to get neurotic. You're going to say, oh, I had this bad dream, something's wrong. No, don't do that. Your dreams are an indicator of your attitude. And when your attitude is bodhicitta and a little bit of sunyata and maybe a bit nice high quality of a personality, then from your side going towards your clear light, you've got a very receptive nature. The Buddhas who have access to your clear light, they're coming out and they can communicate with you more. For example, Tsongkhapa had direct visions of Manjushri. Sangha had direct visions of Maitreya Buddha. So the thing is that it's important to understand that. And actually in the commentary on Bhagavad Gita this morning, they said, all the Buddhas are in your mind. You should never think of them as being outside of you. And so when you do practices, and when he was talking about particular praise of the Vajrayogini Tantra, that when you do that, you should know that you are invoking the blessings of all of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Dakadakinis that are in your nervous system. Anyway, it's part of that Tantra. I highly recommend moving towards it. I know in Boise we're going to do that. It's our next sort of practice that we're going to do. So my point anyway is I was just talking about that when you talk of lucid dreaming or just regular dreaming, and again, if you don't dream that much, don't worry about it. But if you do become a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more mindful, you might dream a bit more. Then you could actually get messages about what sort of characters are showing up in your dreams. That's a little bit personal commentary. Okay. So the final thing, okay, again, in all of this is that why? Because you want to become a little bit more enlightened. You want to be more sensitive. You want to be more insightful. You want to be more empathetic. You want to be a benefit to the world around you. You know, you are interdependent. Thank you to my mother and my father. Thank you to the Dharma. Thank you to the people that grow the crops in the fields. Thank you to the people that live and work in stores that supply the food for me. Thank you to the people that make electricity and supply electricity at my house. Thank you to all those people. I'm interdependent. I would like to repay some of that. How? Well, may I become more enlightened, a more nice person, a more beautiful person. That's my Dharma practice. And all your graduated path is about that, and actually the practice of Tantra is about that too. It's nothing else, okay? So there you go. That's the basic sort of understandings that you want in regards to that. Now, the only thing, one of the things, Jompa commentary, is that when you read the Tantras, they're very male dominant, okay? And Lama Yeshe mentioned this to me once too. He said, you really have to be a little bit careful. So for example, I'll just give you the example. Let's say, in the prayers of So, it goes on. Home, oh yeah, I can do it in Tibetan. Home, Deshin Shaba, Tam Shetan, Pavo Tani, Now Jorma, Kadro Tani, Kadroma, Kunla Dani, Sowada, Dewa, Hewa. Okay, then it goes into the commentary, which is, if you look at it, it's very much male oriented. It says like, may I become Haruka and experience great bliss. And then, may all the Dakinis dance around me and give me an experience of bliss, and may I make that bliss in the voidness, okay? Well, I'd just like to point out that it was really written much more by a bunch of men about their own male fantasies. So, for example, if you're a woman, like, Maureen Denny there, well, she could visualize all these wonderfully sexual men, like the Chippendale. But Chippendale Dakinis dancing around her, okay? Why not? Because the bliss is to be mixed with the voidness, okay? So I'm just pointing out this is a really small side note to say that be a little bit careful in looking at all of the teachings and the commentaries and sometimes the prayers we do. It's very much looking at it from a male perspective, and that's not really accurate. And Lama Yeshe is very clear in that. He said so many times that women have totally the possibility of becoming enlightened. There's no, don't do it other than that. And anyway, so that's pretty much where I wanted to get to. So All I'm trying to do is I'm sharing, the years that I've been involved in Buddhism, some thoughts. This is both, it's going to be, the Zoom verbal thing, but it's also, I'm posting it on YouTube, under Tantra Class under my personal channel. So if you go to YouTube, you put in John Shaneman, it'll kick out who I am, and then you can basically add the, you can watch these ones again. The very first one's got bad video because I had the camera off to one side. This time I managed to set up a camera that's up in front of me, so it's a little better. Okay, now I want to open this to questions. Okay, and so if you have a question or something, you have a thing. Hello, okay, here, Alberto. Are you going to talk about Tumo? I just did. I talked about it last week also. So, Alberto, all I would say is get hold of the Lama Yeshe's book on the Bliss of Inner Fire. Read that. It's very good. And if you look at the class of last week, I did mention a little bit about the most initial steps of developing Tumo, okay? So I'm sorry, I'm not going to do more than that. You need to practice, okay? So, yes, okay, it's Jonathan, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I was actually going to ask you last time about relating, a sort of a, I don't know, a sort of a state of recognition of, I guess, enlightenment with dreams. I wanted to ask you, well, any of us who have been enlightened come back with the news, we could tell for sure, it feels like this kind of dream or this and that. But I don't know if you have the sensation in lucid dreaming where it's almost like you have free will, but at the same time, there's this sensation of somebody watching. Somebody watching, and to me at least, it feels like it's someone very familiar. I don't know. Typically, when this happens, when I wake up in phases, and it feels like my eyes are flickered, and there's this tingling sensation all over my body.
Okay, I can answer you.
Put that through and see what they do.
Okay, you don't need to say much more. Okay, a little bit depends on you when you lucid dream as to what's your attitude. So I would just recommend that, one is maybe understand that if you're having a particular sensation, it has a little bit more to do with your attitude. So if you feel that God is there and God's observing you, that's what's going to show up in your lucid dream. If you think the Buddha is there, then the Buddha is going to show up and thing. So it depends on what your mind is. It depends on how your attitude is. Now, it can be quite innate that you just have a natural inclination to be rather dualistic and to think that someone's watching you. Those things I can't really answer because it's much more personal. It's about you, for example, Jonathan, and where your headspace is at. How do you think about things? Okay, so so that if you're having a sensation of someone's watching you, you most likely are a little bit critical of yourself, and you are possibly a little bit more, I don't know, let's say dualistic in the sense of, God and me, or, who created this realm. Whereas in the Buddhist point of view, you were the creator of that experience. That's your realm. And so, for example, you should try to read, Glenn Woolen produced a book on the 6 yogas of Naropa, and in there he talks and quotes from Lama Tsongkhapa. So you might want to go and read that a little bit, where Tsongkhapa says very clearly, recognize your dreaming, be able to maintain it, and then start trying to manipulate things. And there's no mention in any of this that there's some being that's watching you. Now, I can share with you that, for example, there was one Lama that came through Torion a couple of years ago, and he was a very nice Lama. I liked him. And then the next night, I had this massive lucid dream, and I went, whoa, and it was his blessing. Now, I didn't think he was in my mind. I just understood that he inspired me or blessed me to have that ability to have a lucid dream. So thank you very, very much, and I got to play around in my own little lucid dream mind, okay? But I'll come back to that. The main thing is your attitude creates what happens in your lucid dream. So just be more mindful of trying not to be dualistic, that there's someone there. If you'd like someone there, you can invoke them. Again, how flexible you are in your own lucid dream does depend on your merit. If you have not got much positive merit, you will not be able to do much in your lucid dream. If you have a lot of positive energy, you can do more. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is, for example, if you'd like to have someone there, like maybe you'd like to have the Dalai Lama show up and talk to you and give you teachings, okay, well, you can invoke the Dalai Lama. Now, how you do that, which I've explained it before in other classes I've done, is, for example, let's say you're facing forward and you say, I really would like to meet the Dalai Lama. So you can say there's a door behind you and it goes into a Dalai Lama palace. So you turn around in your lucid dream and there's the door, because you imagined it there. You open it and you can walk in and the Dalai Lama will be there. But that's the power of your merit. If you don't have much merit, it won't happen. But that means that you've got to be a very positive and virtuous person. Again, let's say you do manage to invoke the Dalai Lama into your lucid dream, but he doesn't talk to you. Again, it's a sign that you don't have enough merit yet. So you have to be a more virtuous person. You have to be more positive. You have to forgive the people that you don't like. You have to be a kind-hearted person and wisdom of understanding reality and bodhicitta. Then you'll have the Dalai Lama talk to you. Milarepa said, at night when I go to sleep, I go visit Amitabha Buddha and he gives me teachings. So this is an example. But the bottom line is that I would recommend you become much more conscientious of not being dualistic about thinking of it that someone's in my dream sort of watching me, okay? So
That's tough. Let me just ask you this last question, and I appreciate your advice, and I'll put it through my filter. Okay, so on the one hand, we hear this concept that it's just our mind, okay? But I guess I would ask you, how do you reconcile you yourself this state of, how should we call it, like solipsism against the actual teachings that are transpired? Do you see what I mean? It's almost like, on the one hand, most of what it said is, it's your psyche. It's your psyche. But however, there's real stuff trickling through. I mean, it feels like there's teachings coming through, there's lessons coming through, there's experience, there's sensations coming through. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if you could elaborate a little bit. If it's just our psyche, what is this state of solipsism? Sounds a little bit lonely. Maybe because we're used to having experience with other phenomena. How would we feel going into this state where apparently we have to confront the fact that it's just our mind?
Okay, that's enough. I understand. Well, you are the filter of whatever you experience, whatever level of sensitivity you have. So the thing is, if you're very sensitive, you can pick up other people's feelings and energy. That's very common, It's nothing special. I mean, when you fall in love with somebody, your energy goes to that person, and if they happen to love you, the energy comes back. If you hate somebody, same thing can happen. In fact, there's a thing I follow in Australia. Used to, he had a bad relationship, and then he would have these things of pain in his body, and he said, "Oh, that person is cursing me." Well, that's not the case. What it was he just had a very bad vision of that person, and every time he thought of that person in a really bad way, he got pain in his body. But that was the response because of his own negativity. It wasn't that other person. The other person didn't have any ability, any magic or anything. So coming back to the main point, you can be a sensitive person. You can pick up lots of feelings from other people, but you are the filter of that. So you need to basically, if you pick up that somebody's having a problem, say a prayer for them. If you pick up that someone's happy, say a prayer for them, and things. So, and then, they like that. So, in the small print on the contract of I've become a meditator, it says, I'm sorry, you're going to become more sensitive. And that means you're going to pick up on energy and feelings of other people, whether they're in immediate proximity or they're at a distance. So then you've got to learn how to deal with that. And that is compassion. Peace and compassion. Okay, so that'd be my only thought about picking up on things, feeling things, or sensations and stuff. You are the filter of those things, so you are the one that needs to go and learn how to deal with them effectively in an appropriate manner. But you can send very nice feelings to other people. I mean, if you have a warm heart, like Lama Yeshe was like that. I mean, he had a beautiful warm heart, and you would feel so happy when you thought about him. Like your body would feel so good. Because that was Lama Yeshe's energy, and you were accessing it. That's why people like the Dalai Lama or Lama Zopa Rinpoche are so special, because even just to think about them makes an impact, makes some energy in our nervous system. That's a blessing. So that's why it's so nice to know holy people. Okay. Now, just a second. So I had, okay, we have, when daily prayer, I feel a warm in my body. Was nice. A warm fuzzy. Okay, this is from Shafong. Okay, Shafong, that's not particularly tumo. Tumo is when you actually go into your central channel, that is the nervous system. So last week, I talked about becoming more conscious of the nerve energies in your body and such. So all I would say is go and listen to last week's discourse, I think somewhere at about the 30-minute mark and such. That you have warm, fuzzy feelings, that's very nice. It means you're getting some benefit out of your Dharma practices. You're being good. The only thing is that don't have the expectation it's always going to be there. That means is that then your Dharma practice is becoming rather mundane. If you have nice feelings when you meditate, great. And if you don't have such nice feelings, that's okay. Accept that too. Meditation tends to be a cycle. Sometimes you have good meditations, and sometimes you have other lousy meditations. And sometimes you have good meditations, and sometimes you have lousy meditations. So it's the way it is. You can't say there's any special control. Anybody else want to type a question or ask a question? We still have some time. Thank you, Shafan. See, I can see in front of me there's John, and there's Ursula, Adriana, there's Carmelita. Hello, Carmelita. Okay, anybody else type a question?
I have another one if nobody else does another one.
Oh, wait, all right. Make it nice and straightforward. Actually, wait, okay, one other person asked a question. I'm sorry, they cut you off. Okay, illusory body. The illusory body comes after you've accomplished some tumo, or psychic heat. You've opened up your central channel. And literally what it is, it's just an astral body. But it's created by the power of your mind. So it comes back to the point of that when you start to open your central channel, then your mind becomes more powerful. And then you can do things. So, one of the things that you could accomplish would be illusory body. Now, if you practice the Guhya Samaja Tantra, you are working at developing illusory bodies. But the way that you get that, whether it's called the impure illusory body or the pure illusory body, the foundation of both of those is your psychic heat meditation, okay? And it's something you can control. So I do know of some people, for example, some people can lucid dream very easily, and they're not even Buddhists, so there's nothing special about that. And I know of a few people that claim that they can astral project. They can take their mind out of their body and run around and see things. Again, it's not my experience, so I don't know if it's true. I don't know if you could call that illusory body. I could call that, astral projection. But illusory body, in the Buddhist term, is the creation of your virtue for the benefit of sentient beings. And so therefore it has a very special quality. Now, I guess if you did astral project and you're a really nice person, I guess we could qualify that as an illusory body. But I don't have that attainment in those experiences, so I can't comment more than just to say that illusory body in the Buddhist terms of Tantra comes after you've accomplished some psychic heat meditations entering your central channel, okay? Hi, Jorge. Hope you're well. Alejandra, thank you. So this will be the last class. I just figured I've put it online. I've made it available. So I don't really have any other things I'd like to share because most of it just requires practice. Now, I'm not adverse to doing another one after another 5 or 6 months. I'd be happy to do that. I can say that In Torreon, maybe in the fall, we will do an initiation of Yamataka and Vajrayogini. And of course, then there's always a possibility of a few days of live teachings at that point. And then the next thing would be I'm going to Boise, Idaho, and again, I'll be doing Yamataka and Vajrayogini there somewhere in the fall time, providing the virus is going down a little bit. So those are things that are going to be happening. At least my wish is that we can do those things. That's sort of on the roll. I was supposed to be going to El Paso actually in July, but of course the virus shot all that down. So, and in El Paso, I was going to also do initiations and things. But anyway, so I don't travel a lot. My main thing is Torreon. I live here and I'm very happy here. Torreon's the best. Okay, and then El Paso and Boise, Idaho, and then a little bit in Los Angeles. Those are the only things I do. I don't like to get too popular. One very sad thing is when your teacher becomes popular, you don't get access anymore because they become too popular, they're always busy. So it's nice when your teacher is not popular. Okay. Okay, well, I guess that's it. And Jonathan, send me emails if you have questions, okay? That I can answer you that way a little bit easier. John, nice to see you. Ursula, nice to see you. Adriana, Carmelita. I mean, let's see if I can go through here. There's Irene. There's Jocelyn down there in Mexico City with her headphones set on. Robert. Hi, Robert. Hi, Tom. Hi, Joan. There's Jorge. Good to see you there, Jorge. Carlos. Good to see you there. Patty. Oh, Patty. I guess you're working very hard as a doctor. Christopher. Christopher, we haven't met physically, but nice to see you there. And Robin. It's so nice to see you, Robin. You still have really long hair? Oh, she does too. Okay. Let me see. Oh, then there's Shafang, who doesn't have her video turned on. Doug. Hi, Doug. Hi, Gregory. Terry. Hi, Terry. Hi, Kim. Hi, Yule. Yule, Kim, and Elizabeth. Jason. Albert. Alejandra. And Jonathan. Okay, so that's it, guys. Okay. Meditate and think about things. I did make these available. It's just my sharing. I'm not claiming this to be some unbelievably special thing, but I wanted to, you know, as I said to Gregory, I said, before I died, I wanted to share a little bit of something. So I don't plan to die, okay? But I thought I better get it out there before something does happen, because, you know, you never know when death's going to come your way. So I think the things I said are meaningful. They're meaningful for me. They come from the times that I've practiced. I try to be a sincere person. I try not to be, you know, anyway, whatever, a hypocrite. I am a little bit of a hypocrite, but I try not to be. Okay. So big hugs, lots and lots of love, guys. Take very, very good care. Hi, Jocelyn. Take care. And Ursula, thank you. And Patty. And take good care. So bye-bye, guys. We're going to shut it down for everybody.
Thank you, Jampa.
Bye, Japa.
Oh, okay, bye. Take care.